last thing I wanted to ask you was about what it was like actually working with like Conway Publications or publishing. Like how did you end up going? Did you reach out to them with like a lot of this already fleshed out? Did you have communication with them prior? What was that interaction like?
Well, I heard about them because they published Michael Hathcock's conducting book early last summer, or maybe it was mid last summer. I forget. But it's the new. It's kind of like it was the new standard, and so I heard of them because of that. And I was at that point. I had been writing so much, and I hadn't really approached anybody yet, and I already had about 300 pages by the time I started talking to publishers because I
That's
was
a
thinking,
serious commitment ahead of time.
yeah,
This-
because come hell or high water, this is going to be published. If I have to do it myself and go to FedEx office and print this out,
yeah,
readily,
right.
I will freaking do it.
They're gonna ask you about the
Um,
binding. Oh,
yeah.
no.
So by then I already had quite a bit of it done by the time I started asking folks. And I did want it to be, some larger volumes because I wanted this, like I said, to replace these gargantuan studio packets that we had.
Yeah.
And rather than have a binder of all your stuff, here's a book. And here's a method book that probably covers nearly all of this sort of thing. And so I started talking to everybody, and I'm not going to name anyone, but I talked to some publishers that everybody will have heard of because they
Hmm.
published your repertoire and other methods, and they wanted that book to be about $90 to $110.
That
Just
sounds accurate.
because
That sounds accurate.
like I said, it's a textbook market. I'm a living author, and the way the market works, they charge a hefty markup, and my percentage of that, put it this way, would be less than I'm getting per book with Conway Publications for selling it for 35.
That's
So that was illuminating.
yeah,
And
yeah.
then, there are a few smaller publishers who had much more realistic, expectations about that. And I talked with them, and they were very nice. And a lot of them were excited about the book too. And I went with Conway Publications because I know Colleen Conway, and she's a absolute staple of music education in Michigan at U of M. She's the head of it, and she's just this wonderful creative figure, and just has trained a lot of really great teachers. And so I trust her reputation when it comes to music ed.
Yeah.
And she was coming at this having published, smaller books with other publishers and hating that interaction. So these big publishers and just trying to publish, a 120-page book, it's taking years
Yeah, I
and
know. Yeah,
costing
that's all I've heard too.
ridiculous.
Yeah, the amount
Yeah,
of time it takes just to line it up.
right. And for some that you send in edits, and it's 3 months between when you hear things,
Yeah,
and there's no reason to operate that way. So I went with Conway Publication because I liked their structure. They had a realistic idea for price. And like I said, I pretty much, I had finished material ready to go, and Tom Hodgman, Colleen Conway's husband, is kind of their editor, and so we would send back some formatting ideas, and he helped me get a lot of that right, and from everything from choosing font to is it left aligned or is it justified text, all that stuff, and so he helped me sort through the reads with that, and did the cover design. And so that process went super smooth. I'd say, and like I said, it was nice because he could send me edits. I could work on them that night,
Hmm.
send them to him that night, and I would have comments on them the next day.
What a great
That does
relationship.
not happen with a
No,
lot of big publishers.
that's yeah.
Um, and so it was a
No
really
wonder
great.
you got all three of these volumes ready to go.
Nice. Well, there's that, and also I didn't just work on volume one when I started.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I started with, like I said, what are my three gripes? One, our fundamentals aren't written full range. That's chops one. Two, people stop getting creative with scales after they do them full range, and then they start doing intervals and never think creatively about scales again.
Yeah,
So
we're
we got to
stopped
fix
at
that.
six.
Yeah. And then three, there's no quartet book. And quartet is a huge part of my life. So that was kind of the trilogy was already set there. Like I saw the whole Lord of the Rings ready to go. You know, I saw the final battle. All right, how do we get there?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And so I came to them with, and I tried to do that with each volume. That I wasn't sending in a few pages at a time. You know, and being really tedious with that, just because that can really drain. You know, after about 20 emails, you're thinking, "Good golly, I need a break from this."
Yeah,
But
it's never gonna end. Ugh.
right. So I would come in and I would ask him specifically, you know, what do the margins need to be? What does the text need to look like? And alignment wise. And so he would clue me into, if you're going to bind this way, this margin has to be this much on the inside. They're mirrored, all that stuff. And so he gave me a lot of advice, and then I tried to over prepare
Yeah, yeah.
so that I could send in 200 pages and he could go through that. And they were pretty much ready to go, you know, with one or two tweaks here and there, you know. And so I tried to be low maintenance when it came to that stuff. And that's precisely what we just did with the quartet book. And I wrap up on that. That process was, you know, because I'm now quite fluent in Sibelius. Yeah, I thought I knew it, having done arrangements. But then
Yeah,
you write a
yeah.
method book with it, and you're like, okay, now I really know every nook and cranny of this program. And so I wrote out a whole bunch of exercises. I sent it to the quartet. They gave me comments. Our text sections were Google Docs that they could just edit at will, and I accepted that and then brought that back in. And then I sent essentially a completed and edited book that the whole quartet's looked at, you know, to Tom. And he goes through and makes sure that each section, he lines it up well, and he tweaks what he needs to tweak. And then, you know, you get a nice full proof of it about a week later.
That's awesome.
You know, that does not happen with big publishers.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
that's all I'll say about that. I'm not going to
Well,
name names.
and I can tell you right now, if I saw a price tag of $90 and knew there were 3 volumes coming out, I wouldn't have these books for. It would be very spread out.
No.
Whereas like Chops 2 came out and I was like, why has it been 2 weeks and I haven't ordered this yet? And then
Well, that's,
I ordered it directly from the publisher and I got it in less than a week. That was
right.
yeah.
Yep. No, and that's said. They're super professional. It's like, and that's why I think, you know, small publishers have been as successful as they have been, because a lot of students are tired of the ridiculous textbook market.
Yeah.
And I have a lot of respect for people who write textbooks and put that stuff out. But, you know, the expense for some of these things is absurd.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just absolutely absurd. And these companies have to do it, otherwise they don't actually make a profit. They don't
Well,
stay
yeah,
in business because
no, it's
their
understandable.
business model is so strange. Whereas, you know, you are paying, you know, a fraction of markup on this than any large publisher would think of. You're literally paying a third of the price of what some people wanted to charge for this. And you know, like I said, thinking as a student myself, if somebody wrote a saxophone method in multiple volumes, like you just said, and they want $100 for a book on scales, I would find every way to not pay for it, but find out what's in it.
Yeah.
You know,
because that's like an incentive that's being created by doing that.
It's so prohibitive.
Like
you
now
know?
you're going to have quartets. There will be 4 copies bought because why not?
Yeah.
Like it's cheaper than
absolutely.
cheaper than ordering a score of a piece. Like
It's cheaper than a piece. It's cheaper than a box of Berry Reeds. You know,
it's
literally that's thinking like a saxophonist. I was thinking, if we keep it around here, this is about what they pay for reeds. This is not unheard of for saxophone.
You wouldn't say that's exactly, because if you get bored and you spend $30 on a box of reeds, and so like getting bored and
my
actually
reeds suck. I got to get a new box of Berry Reed and just play, and you're just like, it costs 30 something plus shipping.
Yeah.
So I'm like, that's what this book is, and as a nice result, it just so happens you'll use these for lots of years. I don't think I'm being overly optimistic when I think that, especially with Chops 1, you could use that for 5 years right now, put it away, use concepts from it without using the book, come
Yeah.
back to it 5 years after that, and still have stuff left over.
Yeah,
You know,
100%. I don't.
what
Yeah.
he was so nice to write something up on the back. I sent one of the proofs of that to Claude in Paris, and just to see if he'd be willing to write some remarks on the back, the back cover blurbs that we all have.
Hmm.
And I hadn't heard from him in a little bit, and so I just said, how's it going? And he's like, I only wanted to send you some comments once I played through it, but this is going to take me another. This is going to take me another 5 months. So
That's talk about preparing yourself for the worst response of an email.
Yeah. No, I was just like, okay, if this is taking Claude this long, I've got
That's
something
awesome.
here. And so that, like I said, that I wanted that utility to be built in, so that you're not, if you've bought both of these, you're not instantly thinking, well, I need another technique
Yeah.
book.
What's my next book? Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. You should be curious about if new stuff, other people write and comes out, because it's always great to get new perspectives. But if you're thinking that you need a new studio book or a new scale book, within a month of buying either of these, you're either a phenom or you didn't go through
Did
the
you
book
look
nearly
at
enough.
that?
Yeah. You either just
Yeah.
somebody who needs to record instantly, or okay, maybe you didn't go through the whole thing. So I want that utility to be built in, to a $35-40 price tag. If you get 5 years utility out of that, that's probably the most cost-effective thing you will pay for in college.
Yeah. No, that 100% agree. That's and based off of like the amount of time that I've been putting into that book one already. That's
Yeah.
I yeah, 5 years seems conservative.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would say so. I mean, like I said, the books are my undergrad through the first 10 years of being a professional.
Yeah.
That's what's in that right there. And so I think I would love it if people got, that much utility out of it.
That's awesome. Oh.